the virtual meeting, as you know. Today will be part 1, and next week the second part. My name is Tamar Sadeh, and I'm leading the Teaching and Learning Solutions at Libris. I'll share first the agenda of today. So I'm looking forward to hearing Elize, Rowan and Angela Laurins from the University of Edinburgh talking about their workflows with Leganto and Rialto. I will then share a product update about Leganto. And finally today, Sara Belotti from the campus engagement team at Libris will talk about strategies for expanding Leganto adoption. Next week, on the 18th, same time, we'll have 3 presentations from the University of Surrey. Catherine Stephen will talk about the implementation of Leganto during lockdown and the lesson learned. Barak Hecht, whom you probably know, is the development director of Leganto, will talk about the LTI 1.3, why, what, and how. And finally, Linda Pulver and Leda Channer from the University of Manchester will talk about their hybrid approach to Leganto, working with purchase requests and lists for review at the University of Manchester Library. Before we start, I want to welcome the 2 most recent universities who joined the Leganto community, so University of Leeds and Nottingham Trent University. And right now we have 42 institutions in UKI, 40 in the UK and 2 in Ireland that are using Leganto. So many of you know me, and I've been involved in Leganto from the beginning. So it's a very fantastic moment for me to sit here actually and look at this number. I wanted also to share with you the usage of Leganto in UKI. I think it's extremely interesting to watch. We're tracking usage in 2 ways. We're looking at the number of active courses and the number of active students. And what you see in here, I compared the academic year of 2018-19 to the academic year 19-20 and the current academic year 2021. The data that we have, obviously, the data is only until April. We don't have May, June, and July. And just to remind all of us, when I'm talking about active courses, and that would be the left-hand side graph, these are the courses that have reading lists, and the reading list was used by students. So no matter how many times and how many students, but the course was active. And on the right-hand side, that's the number of active students. So we're measuring an active student as a student who accessed course resources through Leganto, at least in one of their courses during the period that we're talking about. So you can see that in October we had, I don't know, 200,000, 210,000, 20,000 active students accessing Leganto from the UK only this month. It's nice always to look at the Leganto statistics, and you can very easily identify when is the beginning of the term, when is the Christmas vacation or holiday vacation, when is the summer vacation. So you know it's real data. So with this, I'll end this short introduction and welcoming, and I'll hand over to, oh, sorry, I forgot the most important thing. I wanted to thank you. Thank you for those who attended, who came to the session, of course. Thank you for all those who post on Basecamp. I find the discussion there really very interesting, and all those who added ideas and voted for them or for other people's ideas on Idea Exchange. As you'll see when I share the product update, we take many ideas from you. We also met with some institutions individually, institutions in the UK that share their feedback, and I hope you'll be happy to know that we listened carefully, and you'll see some of your ideas in our roadmap. And special thanks obviously to Angela and Chris. We worked together for a long time. It's always a pleasure, and thank you for organizing this meeting. So now I'll ask Angela and Elize to step in and talk about their implementation of the Rialto and Leganto work.
Okay, hi. So I know you can hear me because I can hear my feedback as well. I've had a few technical difficulties today. I'm talking on my phone, so we'll see how this goes, and hopefully I've got enough juice in my phone for that. So I hope you're all well. I'm Angela Laurins. I manage the resource list service at the University of Edinburgh, and my colleague Elize Rowan manages the content acquisitions and access team. And we're going to talk to you today about our experience using Leganto and Rialto together. So we should have plenty of time for questions at the end. Can I just double check, is my sound okay? Can you nod? Yeah, it's fine. Okay, great.
Angela, sorry, Danielle speaking. The phone is totally fine and we can definitely go for this. If you have to change to just put down the volume on your laptop, because your laptop is making the echo. If this is possible, this would just increase a bit the sound, but otherwise we can hear you okay.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so I'll see if I can advance the slides along. How do I do that on the... Sorry, it's all going wrong today. There we go. Okay, so as a bit of background, we moved from Talis to Leganto in June 2017. So right from the beginning, we've used the resource list service to manage and inform purchase materials for teaching, and have had an integrated cross-team workflow to manage requests. So now, although there is still no mandate, academics are strongly encouraged to use the resource lists to make requests, and it's the library's preferred route for them to do so. So in fact, we use this idea of a one-stop shop or a single point of entry for library collection services as a way to promote Leganto to academic staff. The resource list should save them time, as it replaces the need to send multiple emails and to complete multiple forms to request teaching materials they require. Okay. Oops, sorry, wrong way. Okay, so this is the workflow we went live with in 2017, and it's not changed much since, apart from the fact that last year we didn't operate a high-use book collection. So although there's one front-facing resource list team, there's several separate teams all working together to deliver the service, and each has its own distinct role in the process. So we developed our workflow by basically getting representatives from every collections team into a room and working through the workflow step by step in Alma. And essentially I have really vivid memories of everybody being locked in the room for 3 hours at a time on a hot sunny day, and we were going to make this work. We haven't really changed our process or our workflow since 2017, and it's working really well for us. So it's a great opportunity for us not just to team build, but also to learn more about what each of the team does and understand issues and work together to develop a process and kind of address those issues together. So in our workflow, Library Learning Services works at a list level, and the other teams work at a kind of a individual level. Well, the acquisitions team works at an individual request level. So when Library Learning Services has finished building and reviewing the list, we pass it down the right-hand side to the high-use book collection, who manage the 3-hour loans, or to the e-reserve team, who provide copyright compliance scans. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, acquisitions are working on a title-by-title, item-by-item basis, checking and managing and processing requests for ebooks and books and negotiating purchase for key texts. So what we do at the Leganto end hasn't changed with the introduction of Rialto. Okay, go to the next slide. So we make really good use of tags at Edinburgh. So the tags assigned to the citations, both by the Library Learning Services team and by the academics, inform what each team in the process does with the citation. So we started off with 3 basic tags. These are public tags: essential, recommended, and further reading. And we also had, right from the beginning, 2 library instructor tags: digitisation request and purchase request. So the request tags are available to instructors to add to the citations, but I would say that in general, it's the library teams that make use of these tags when we're building and reviewing lists. And these are most useful when we get onto Alma. The team can add them in Leganto and then filter by purchase or digitisation request tag on the Alma reading list screen to identify those items for which a purchase request needs to be submitted. So last year, with the pivot to hybrid teaching and learning, we introduced a key text tag to help identify key texts that acquisitions may have to negotiate for separately. And we also introduced a digitisation available tag to make it super clear to students when online material was available. So this year, in addition, we're introducing what we're calling outcome tags. So for digitisation requests, so that is a new digitisation pending and a new digitisation declined tag. And so these tags will only be available to instructors, and what we're hoping that that will do is provide them with a bit more information on the outcome of the request and hopefully reduce the number of back and forth emails that we receive generally chasing digitisation requests. I should say here that also that while we do use the DCS, we haven't integrated it with Alma. So we process our scan requests in the same way as purchase requests in order to check for ebook availability first. In our comms to academic staff, we try to underline that if there is no tag on a citation, there'll be no action taken by the library to make the item available. So despite trying to be really clear on this, we still receive lists where citations are not prioritised and occasionally deal with instructors who refuse to prioritise their items on the resource list for pedagogical reasons. However, in 2020-21, the vast majority of our purchase and digitisation requests were submitted via Leganto. Okay, so I've included an overview of the approach Edinburgh took to manage the provision of materials for teaching last academic year, as this had a significant impact on the volume of purchase requests that were submitted via Leganto. So like everyone else, our focus was on providing as much online content as possible, where previously we would have purchased multiple copies depending on the priority assigned to the citation and the number of students. Only a single print copy was purchased for scanning if no ebook was available. However, last year we committed to checking all essential and recommended citations on new lists and on lists sent for review for ebook availability. We also, for the first year, proactively identified essential chapters for digitisation, and as we checked for ebook availability before providing a scan, that meant submitting over 12,000 purchase requests via Leganto, and each one being individually processed by the acquisitions team. Everything going? There we go. Okay, so once the list has been set up or reviewed in Leganto, we switch to Alma. And this is a screenshot of the reading list task screen. We filter the list by tag. You can see at the top of this list that the list has been filtered by purchase request. So this option to filter the citations on the reading list task screen is incredibly useful when you're working through lists that are hundreds of items long. So you can really focus on those citations that you need to take some action on. So when we've got a list of purchase requests, we can just work through them one by one, selecting the purchase request option from the drop-down menu on the right-hand side of the citation there. You can also see that you've got information on this screen, including the tags, demand on other lists, and the section name of where the citation appears. So at the top, this is the top of the purchase request form, and you can see all the metadata has been pulled through from the citation. So we don't edit anything here, but we focus on the bottom half of this form. At the top, by default, the requester is the person submitting the request. So in the requester field, we change this to either the Library Learning Services team name or the eReserve team. And both teams are set up as dummy users in Alma. So whoever is the requester within the purchase request becomes the interested user on any POL that's created around the request, and would then receive the alert when the book is received if it's in print, or if it's when it's activated if it's an ebook. So the notification emails Alma generates are sent to a Library Learning Services inbox, and it's someone in the team's task each day to check each alert from acquisitions and hook up any new purchases to the corresponding citation or citations in the resource list. So this is one part of the workflow that doesn't join up efficiently, and I'm sure there's an easier and more efficient way to do it, and if anyone has an alternative, I'd love to hear about it. So working down from the form, we also select the owning library, and then we add, we ignore the cost, fund and vendor information fields. And in the requester note, you can see that there's a certain amount of information pulled in automatically from Alma. So that's basically the course information, the code, the title, the instructor's ID, but crucially not the instructor's email, the number of students and the number of copies held. So we add 4 pieces of additional information: the priority of the item, the instructor's email address, a note for acquisitions, in this case, please check for ebook availability, and the school. So what you can also see in this screen is that the tags are also appear at the bottom of the screen. Okay. And generally, it's really quick to submit a purchase request. And when I'm doing it, even though we've got to add additional information, I generally find if you can copy and paste the same information and the additional information required. And we put this information in an acquisitions request because it makes it much easier for them to copy and paste the instructor's email into the interested user once it comes to them. Okay. And once the purchase request is submitted, we complete the citation and we change the status of the list to complete when we've finished working on it, not when all the items are available. And the last screenshot from me is finally, this is still in the reading list screen in Alma. You can see by the alerts tab, there's 2 alerts here and on this citation. And if I open this up, I can see when the purchase request was submitted, and really usefully, I can see what's happened, whether that request was rejected, as with the first one, or if it's been approved, as with the second one. So I find this incredibly helpful as a person who doesn't have access to the acquisitions end of things, to be able to see the outcome of my purchase requests. So that's all that happens in the Leganto end, and I'm going to pass to Elize to talk about her experience of using Rialto.
Thanks, Angela. So what I'm going to do is over the next 10 minutes or so, I will talk through our experience of using Rialto to fulfill the purchase requests that Angela's team are pushing through to us. So a little bit of background, we were a Rialto development partner. The project kicked off in late 2018. Running through to 2020. So we were one of 10 development partners globally and 4 in the UK. And for us to be a development partner, it made sense because ProQuest were our main supplier through our Scotland-wide procurement framework for both print books and ebooks. And we saw the potential for efficiencies because we knew that our acquisitions workflow did have a number of pain points. So anything that was going to deliver some relief from the pain points and efficiencies was worth our investment in time. So we went live as part of the first cohort of development partners in February 2020. And at that point, the deliverables were the fact that the marketplace was integrated into Alma. So we were working from one interface for the bulk of our purchase request fulfillment. And we also had visibility of our existing holdings for the purchases that we were searching for in the marketplace, where there were matches. And also the shopping cart, so that really intuitive order process. So I'm going to just go through a few screenshots as Angela did, just to give you a sense of how we're using this workflow. There is the separate selector workflow, but what we've done is over the last year and a bit, we've focused on the purchasing aspect of Rialto, and in the coming months we will start to look at bringing in some of our subject leads and liaisons as selectors. But this is very much the purchaser role and the purchaser workflow. So we have the acquisitions team, the acquisitions assistants are set up as purchasers, so we don't go through an approval process for this. So they can place the orders direct as they were doing previously, and for ProQuest orders through Oasis, and we were largely EDIing our orders there, or also using ebook Central for the ebook orders in some instances. So we go into the purchase requests through the task list. So the team go in, search for the unassigned purchase requests, and up in the top left you'll see that the marketplace is there and has been enabled for our team. So we go into the purchase request queue. We were using purchase requests before, but using external systems to do the querying and placing of the orders. So from here, you'll see I've chosen one item that we're going to go through the steps for, and there is a search and market option, which I've highlighted in yellow there towards the right-hand side. So clicking on that takes the information from within the purchase request and pushes it through into the marketplace, and it finds a match for this title. It pulls on the right hand side, it's pulled over the full purchase request information, and you can hover over requester notes so the team can see at a glance what the nature of the request is, and what it's needed for, which course it's needed for, and the number of students. The offers that are available for this title in the marketplace, we can see there's one print title and 4 electronic titles. So we can click on the view offers link to go in and look at this in a bit more detail. So here are 4 offers, and in this instance, this is a title that we didn't already have in stock. So on the right-hand side, highlighted in red, the holdings information, there are no records found, no matches for that title in our inventory at all. And I'll just step back a minute and just show you one that does have a match. So what you would see in the search results is highlighted in red, the fact that it's in our institution, and clicking on that link takes you through to, on the right hand side of the screen, the holdings information, and you can scroll down and see what we have. In this instance, we know we've got a physical copy, at least one physical copy in the main library. So jumping back to the book that we're going to purchase and put in the shopping cart, we can see the offers that are available. So we know there's hardback. In this instance, we're looking for an ebook, and the icons at a glance for these titles, and in this instance, it just happens to be ebook Central licenses. We could equally see EBSCO host titles, or any of the publisher direct titles that would be shown here as licenses where they're available. So the icons here showing on line 2, ebook Central, that's a non-linear lending model. Line 3 is the ebook Central unlimited model, which is what we look for, certainly for teaching. We try and find unlimited licenses, our first preference being ideally publisher direct. We have also on line 4, we have a 3-user license, and line 5, a single user license. So in this case, we're going to go for option 3, which is the unlimited user license. So at this point, you can also click on the title to get more information. So Doing so, you get a description. There may be a link to full text preview if there's anything that needs to be checked, or if the member of the team who's placing this request isn't entirely sure it's the right item. So they can go and look at the full text preview. It displays the license information, summary information. So we know that this is the one that we want. So we're going to go ahead and click on the link and add to cart. And that then shows that, so this link here, link and add to cart. And that then shows instantly as being in the cart and on the back of a purchase request. So at this point we could continue shopping, but we'll speed things up and we'll just go in and look at the cart to see how that looks. So this is the view of the cart, and it is showing us down the right hand side that we're ordering it for our e-collections. We can see the order summary, one title, and you'll note that the pricing has changed. So the list price was £94.50. We will be paying £89.78, and that's reflecting our consortial discount, which is pulling through on this title. The quantity and fund information, we can add how many licenses, we can add the fund information, which is mandatory, and also the optional reporting codes, which we do. So the fund information and the reporting codes, we can select, those are loaded, pulling through from Alma, and we can add those in from the drop-down list. So from this screen, I'll just scroll further down just to show you the additional fields. So it's pulling over the note to, it says approver here, but it's the purchaser, the person doing this will just place the order. They can add an optional note, internal note if required. And also this is where we can add the interested user. So in this instance, we've added Angela's team for Library Learning Services to get an alert when this ebook is activated. And the next screen just shows you an example if we were ordering this book in print, and the fields you can complete are slightly different. We've got the physical location. Again, we select that from a drop-down list. And we have our shelf-ready defaults set up as part of our initial setup process. But here you can tick to bypass any of those. So if, for example, you don't want a marked record, it may just be an additional print copy for existing holdings, or you don't need a spine label or physical processing, you can add that information here. So at this point, this looks ready to go. We've got our interested users, and the checkout, we'll just click on the checkout, which gives us a final step just so we can review that information before we can confirm the order and place the order. So everything looks okay, quite happy with that. So we click on confirm the order, and we get confirmation that that order has gone. So that's the Rialto checkout, but there's much more happening behind the scenes there. So as well as the order being placed with ProQuest, there's a purchase order automatically created and populated within Alma, which saves that rekeying. The title is published to Primo in the next publishing job, showing a status of on order. And with the ebooks, there's an e-activation task which has recently been added to the functionality, which is the default. Institutions can opt to switch that off, but we are currently having our ebooks e-activations done automatically, and then the interested user alert goes out once either the ebook's activated or the print book is delivered. So efficiencies wise, certainly our experience of using Rialto as part of the purchase request fulfillment, it has delivered efficiencies for us. We've got that single intuitive interface and being able to search the marketplace and follow through to place an order within that one screen. for those items that are available to us in the marketplace. And having checked, I think there's roughly around 40 million print ISBNs in the marketplace at the moment, about 3 million ebooks. And at the moment, and being added to all the time, Publisher Direct. So there's 17 of those in addition to eBook Central and Alexander Street. So very much reducing the keystrokes has been a great time saver for us, as has the automation of some of those processes. And we did a bit of sampling last year, and we reckon that we'd probably reduce the amount of time taken to place an order by half. So from about 11 minutes, we reckoned, down to about 5.5, 6, depending on what the title was. So, you know, our experience certainly has been pretty positive, and that's something that we will follow through on with the new releases that come through with Rialto. It's like any other module or area of functionality. So there are developments coming through all the time. So it's something that is very much now embedded in our workflow, and we use as our first port of call when we're looking to fulfill purchase orders. So at that point, I think, yeah, that's us done. So we're happy to take any questions people may have.
Thank you very much, both of you. Sorry, Angela, about the technical obstacles. I see there is one question. Thanks, Elize. Can more than one reporting code be added at this stage? It was the stage probably where you added one reporting code.
Yeah, there's an option to add primary, secondary and tertiary reporting codes. We sometimes have all three, but generally we would really, for these purchase requests, which we push through one fund, we're using mainly one reporting code, and that gives us reporting, in our case, down to school level, school department level, so that we can report back on the expenditure.
All right. Any more questions? Meanwhile, I'll say that it was really very interesting, and I'm very impressed with the time savings. I think everybody's looking at scaling up the service without adding more personnel, so it's wonderful. And there is another question. Do you only use ProQuest or other suppliers too?
Yeah, we use a range of suppliers, but ProQuest were our primary supplier on the Scottish framework, but we are also using other suppliers on the framework where we can't get the content if it's not included in the 40 million print books and 3 million ebooks available through the ProQuest marketplace. Yeah, we do once we've gone through that first stage and check the marketplace, if we need to go elsewhere, as we have done, for example, for e-textbooks, which come through from Angela's team as key texts, we have a partnership. We've had a 1-year pilot partnership with Core Text, so those come through the process, the checks are done, and there is no availability within the marketplace, so we know in those instances the e-textbooks would be fulfilled through another route.
All right, maybe the last question now, because we need to move on. So the question is, how do you make sure ISBNs match? Do you check holdings just in case they do not?
Yeah, that's a good question. The checks, ideally for the course reading requests coming through Leganto, Angela's team will have done those initial checks before they even send a purchase request. So they're checking to see what we have available, linking and adding items to the resource list if they are currently available. So that initial check is being done elsewhere, which means for course collections and Leganto purchase requests, we're not routinely checking to see if there is a match that, or something that is there in our holdings in our inventory that hasn't matched. Obviously, that's just going to be down to the quality of our existing metadata and the level of metadata that is being entered into the purchase request. We are looking to open up the purchase requests to replace our non-teaching requests that we get through, our teaching requests that we continue to get through our web forms. We're going to pull that option and try and push everything that's required as a purchase for teaching through the resourceless service. So at that point, we might do a check, a secondary check, just in case, when we know it's, you know, it's not Angela's team. We're pretty expert in identifying content that we already have. And there are some titles, I think anyone in either of our teams would think that's a bit odd, we don't have that. And you know, that check should pick things up.
All right, thank you so much. There are other questions, but I think that we have still several things on the agenda. So perhaps you could take them later and answer to the whole group or all the questions at once. All right. So thank you again, both of you. It was really very enlightening. And I think that my turn is now. So let me share my slides. Daniela, I need to share my slides, please.
Yes, I'm fighting a bit with WebEx. What a surprise. Give me a second, please. On its way.
Okay. So I hope you see my screen.
Yes.
And let me just switch to presentation mode, and I think we're set. All right, so I don't need to present myself, so we save a minute. I'm going to talk about something about overview of new resources, about product highlights from the past year, and upcoming development plans. And then I hope we'll have time for Q&A. It's just a very brief presentation, and I'm doing it on behalf of Dolav Belotti, who is the product manager, and she's on maternity leave, as you can probably see from this icon. So she would have done a better job, but well, she's doing something else, probably very interesting as well. So a few things a few resources we added in the past year or so. First of all, we created a LibGuides. And I think we did it because we found that we had lots of information, but it was difficult to find it. So now, if you go to the LibGuide, it's on the Knowledge Center, you find the information organized per tabs, and I think it will be very useful. It includes videos, training, all kinds of things. So go there and look at it. I'll share the slides, so there are links to everything that I'm saying in here. We created best practices and how-tos. We saw that in many cases, customers perhaps don't benefit from the capabilities of the system because they don't even anticipate that some things are available. So we're developing this as we go. Every time that we have interesting questions, we add best practices and how-tos to this page, and you're welcome to look at it. We also have this page of upcoming behavior and design changes in Leganto. Thank you, all of you, for all your comments about those changes. We know that it is difficult for the libraries to redesign their training materials, and we appreciate your patience, which try to make Leganto better and better and better as we go. So that's why we created this page, and you'll be able to see what is, or you are able to see what is coming, hopefully enough time in advance. We also added to the release notes the What's New videos. So that's a great source, obviously when they are released, but also later. You probably don't have time to activate new features as the term goes on. So once the term ends, or now at the summertime, it's a good way to look at the top features, because the top features are recorded in this way. So I hope you find it very relevant to you. A short update about BPAT. So as you know, we are working constantly to comply with accessibility standards. We had an audit at the end of 2020. It's available on the Knowledge Center. We are now undergoing 3 separate rounds of testing. We are on the second one. And once it's ending and once it's ending, we'll provide the results and we'll fix the issues that may have come up. So product highlights from the past year. Again, everything you probably can find on the release notes, but I just want to highlight a few. So the reset reading list. As you know, you can roll over lists from year to year, either in a bulk process, or the academic can do that themselves. And this page shows the background and how it is done. But we also added this reset reading list. So you don't have to roll over, you just reset, you decide what you want to delete, and then the list is ready for the next term. We found that in many cases it's easier, it's just suits better your workflows. We added the usage insights, and I think it's an interesting feature because it helps you to identify either bottlenecks or cases where you are over generous with the number of copies or the number of concurrent licenses. So once you run it, you define the boundaries. So what is reasonable from your perspective, and then you get everything, or the licenses or the items that were outside of these boundaries. So for example, you can see in here high demand loan insights or low demand, and the same about reserves loans, and the same about usage insights. Now specifically, I want to highlight this high usage insights. We're looking at concurrent licenses. And basically what you can see is not just the results of the report, but you can see the number of concurrent licenses that you have altogether. So if you have several portfolios, we count them together. And if a portfolio is unlimited in the number of concurrent licenses, then we take that into account. So if you have 2 and one is unlimited and the other one has, I don't know, 3 concurrent users, we look at it as an unlimited, and you don't see this item on this report. So I think it's helpful not just to identify the bottlenecks, but also to see the exact number of concurrent users that you have. We also updated and customized the end user help. So you have now guided videos that you can replace with your own, guided tours that take the user step by step through workflows. Help links are customizable, and a way to send a message to the whole to all users, and that could be to faculty or to students. And I think it's also a good way to deal with unexpected things or expected things as well. We added the student engagement measurements, and this is something that requires some thinking. As you know, the libraries never looked at personal information, but the virtual learning environments did that or do that. And we heard from academics that they lose information if they provide the resources through Leganto, as opposed to just posting them on the VLE, because in the VLE they can see who downloaded the resource, who read it, where in Leganto they cannot. So we added this feature. It's an opt-in feature in the sense that you need to request for it. You need to request from support. And then there are two things about it. The first is that the academic can see this report. And second, you can also export this information to learning analytics platform at your institution. We know that the information about the student engagement is valuable to predict, for example, the number of students at risk. So again, every page here has a link to the either video or documentation. We did two things for the DCS, for the integration with the CLE DCS. The first is that you can, academics can submit digitization requests even when the list is not associated with a course. This was impossible in earlier days. And if the request is created in Leganto and the course doesn't exist in the DCS, then we create the course automatically in the DCS. We use the course API for that. So I hope you find these very useful. So I won't talk about the Rialto integration, of course. There is a video in here, so you can watch the video. It will probably give you a summary of what Elize and Angela has just shown us. So that was about last year, and about the upcoming development. And I'm going to talk about highlights. The full roadmap is on our website. So one nice feature, I think, is about master reading lists. So it's possible today that academics copy parts of other lists, but we saw that in many cases there is a need for a master reading list for a topic or on a department level, and now it's very easy to incorporate it in the reading lists. So that's one thing. The Q&A form is not new, but we added two enhancements to it based on your ideas in the idea exchange. One is an explanation. So you see in here, you've added a physical item, and now there is an explanation. In this case, physical items are not available, and what would you like the library to do with this resource? So this kind of thing that you can, easily create a dialogue with a user. And the other thing is that you have to define this question and answer, this form for every type of material. Now you can combine them together. So if you handle physical videos and physical books in the same way, so you don't need to define it twice. We also improved the search and navigation for librarians, and I believe at least some of the enhancements came from the UK, from UK requests. So you have a reading list and you want to search for a specific item. As we break the list in pages, so it's sometimes can be complex, especially with long reading lists. So now you will be able to search citation within a resource list. You'll be able to search by list ID in Alma, and then those who work in both Leganto and Alma, so it's easy. We want to make it easier for them. So if you are in Leganto, you can open the Alma screen with a citation. Focus on the citation directly. You don't have to search for it, and open Leganto from the Alma main page. You don't need to go to a specific reading list to open Leganto. Next is the copyright workflow improvement. So you may get to a very long approval request task list. So now you can clean it, and we're going to add a history of approval request lists. So you can delete whatever you don't need from the current list, and you'll see it at the history list. In the edit menu in Leganto, when you edit a citation, you can also add a copyright request, so academics can do that. And also we are adding start and end dates in the form, so they'll be automatically filled. Of course, they can be changed. Another thing that came from the UK, so how to track your efficiencies with reading lists and how to prioritize your service. So if an academic submitted the reading list early, you want to know that, even though after that there were corrections. So we're going to store the list's review dates in the analytics for tracking and store the original sent list date also in Leganto. So first we'll store it in Leganto, then in the analytics, so you can see and prioritize accordingly. Another thing is to run the enriched citation job as a scheduled job. So you don't need to invoke it by yourselves, it can run. And this is a good way to ensure that, for example, if you have new items, new titles added to your collection since the last time the job ran, then they're matched, they're allocated to the citations in the reading list automatically. The big thing, I think, for the coming months and perhaps even a little more than months, there are two big things. One of them is the use of LTI 1.3, and Barak is going to talk about that next week, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I'd like to talk about responsive reading and social reading. So responsive reading, our idea is to put the text in the center. So Leganto is not just a delivery mechanism for the text, but the academic and the students can work on the text. So we added private annotations in March, and that was the first step. So right now, every user of the system can add annotations, but that's just private ones. The next step will be for the academic to define assignments that are around texts. So the way they'll do it is to define assignments in the VLE. These are assignments of a specific type. When they click when they choose this type of assignment, then they can choose a citation and say, okay, I want this assignment to be on this citation. They can either choose a citation that is already on the list or load a file and define the citation. They define the assignments. Students get the assignment and they work on it. And the next step, and that will be later at the beginning of 2022, is to enable the academic to also grade the work of the students. So the whole thing is about, first of all, setting very clear context for mutual understanding. So teachers and students look at the same text and mark things on the text. It's the way, you know, we've been doing things like that for decades, especially in the non-virtual world. I remember the papers I wrote or the papers I evaluated, they were really full of comments even in handwriting, or later on with word comments. So basically now we're not talking about their papers, but we're talking about papers that they're reading. And that's the context in here. It's a way to build interactions between students and faculty, and it's a way for the faculty to understand what the students actually do with the text. Right up to now, they only know that the student has downloaded the text, but not what happened afterwards. So with the annotations, they can see gaps, they can assess progress, and they can also decide what to do with the specific students. So this is how it looks more or less today, and this is how it will look when it is an assignment. So from the VLE, this page will open. In this case, I just annotated the text and I use all the functionality in here. And then the students would answer me, and then I'll give a grade to the student. And I hope it is going to be extremely useful. The other thing is about social reading. So this is about working in groups. So again, it's focusing on the content, on the text, and building interaction among group members. So we take a citation with text, and right now students can only add private annotations, but they will be able to add public annotations and work in groups. So that's our plan. You know, there are other tools like that in the market, and you may not know actually about them because typically they get directly to the academics. They don't go through the library. We see this as a good library tool because then everything is controlled, especially copyright. The library is the provider. It's the same system. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to pay anything. You don't need to invest in implementing things. So we hope that this is going to be really nice and useful. So that's a timeline. So private annotations are done. In October, we'll have the assignments. The shared annotation, we are looking at December timeline and the grading in March. So for this project, we would like to have a couple or more academics from the UK. We have a kind of a focus group of academics. We have people from around the world, but we don't yet have anyone from the UK. So if you know of an academic who would be interested in looking at this tool, please write me. I'll be more than happy to contact them and explain the project. It doesn't require much time. We're planning to do everything through Basecamp and just, you know, occasional emails after an initial meeting. And at least the academics I talked to from other countries were really thrilled by the opportunity to take part in shaping this tool. So this was a very brief update, and I'm happy to answer questions. Perhaps I'll stop sharing so I can see the questions. I think these questions are still for the previous session, the questions that I see. Daniela, do you see any questions for me?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. So you're most welcome to send questions later or to write us later. And last call. Okay. So I'll hand over to Sara Belotti.
Hello, thank you. That's me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Tamar. Welcome everyone. On behalf of the campus engagement team here at Libris, I will be facilitating this requested session on strategies for expanding engagement, for expanding Leganto adoption. A number of you have shared that outreach and adoption can be a challenge at your institution. So I am here to address a couple of your most frequently asked questions in this time together. A brief introduction. I have met at this time most of you, but I still like to take a minute or two to share a little bit about myself. My name is Sara Belotti. I'm the newest campus engagement manager to join the campus engagement team here at Libris. I am a graduate of the University of Milan in Italy, where I studied communications. I've had several unique professional experiences throughout my career. And since starting my role here at Libris, I've realized that I'm really passionate about helping people realize their potential and achieve your goals. That's what I try to do with each of you during our calls. And the best part of my job has been so far meeting with you, listening to your experiences and providing support and as well as guidance throughout your journey with Leganto. So talking to my colleagues and as well as most of you recently, it's clear that you have a few challenges in common. One of the most common challenges we hear about from you is how do we best engage our institution? And as a campus engagement manager, libraries often ask me, how can we accelerate adoption at our institution? How can we expand engagement among academics and students? And how can we increase partnerships? So I would like to use this time to discuss these questions in greater detail. And I will also leave some time at the end for some Q&A, of course. So let's start with the first question. How can we accelerate adoption? I mean, there are many different ways to get your message out. If you aren't sure how to begin, I would encourage you to start by asking where you get important information, or how main announcements are currently shared with you while you are at work. And I'm sure I'm willing to bet that emails come to mind for most of you. And yes, emails can be a great place to start. I always try to share with you other ways, because I know that we receive many emails. Everyone receives so many emails that sometimes it's just hard to make sense of it. So whether you're contacting colleagues, individually, or using automated option, like mail merge, emails are fine. They're very effective. But there are other ways that I would encourage you to think about. And these are maybe ways that you also use when you are getting your information, like, scrolling through various posts maybe, or channels on your mobile. So using social media platforms can be a great place to start. And I know I've been looking at your Twitter pages and Facebook pages. You use them already. But those are mainly your library pages. So I'd highly encourage you to use social media platform from other maybe colleagues or marketing teams, or instructional designers, individual faculties. Partner with these stakeholders and ask them to post about Leganto via their accounts as well. Also, ask to join individual department meetings and share, a brief announcement about Leganto in 5 minutes or less. So, I mean, you've heard me saying ask a lot. Never be afraid to ask. I mean, we are afraid to ask because, we want to do things by ourselves, but sometimes it's worth asking. People are willing to help. The worst I can say is a no, and it's fine. I mean, even if you receive a no, you go ahead and you ask someone else. Another way to ensure you're expanding adoption is by making sure that what you're saying resonates with your audience and really grabs their attention. So take a look at what others have done with social media posts, case study videos, LIB guides. I will share a few slides on what some of you have done, and I will share these presentations. So hopefully you'll take a look at what others have done, and you will try to use some of these approaches for your ongoing outreach activities. As a campus engagement manager, I would like to share that, and I share with you this all the time, you don't have to create materials on your own. It's more likely than we have multiple materials that you can use immediately in our sample bank. If you have specific requests, always reach out to us, and we can take a look at our sample bank and see what others have done, and hopefully we can find a relevant example that will meet your needs. So on my previous slide, I highlighted a quote here from Jack London. It says, "You can't wait for inspiration, you have to go after it with a club." And speaking about going after inspiration, this is a Facebook post that had over 1,000, I guess, likes and has been shared, 9,000 likes, and has been shared over 1,000 times. So it's certainly not on the same level as an Instagram influencer, but it is a great example of what an educational initiative like this one, it's called Free Student Streams, and sponsored by the Metropolitan Opera, can achieve. So I'd like to take a moment to highlight a few things for you to consider as you develop your own messaging. This is not a Leganto social media, but there are a few things that you can apply for your promotional efforts. The post itself, as you can see there, is very short, and the initiative, again, which is called Free Student Streams, is not the main focus. The focus, so the post showcases something that is interesting and engaging, even if you're not an opera fan. You know, you can see the image, the text, the links, invite you to take notice and to take an action. Even if, you know, what I'd like to, to highlight here is that the post is asking the audience to do something. So not just look at this and like it. It's asking you to watch La Traviata, to read more about the why and access information via the link provided. So how does it apply to you? As you develop your own messages to expand engagement, always ask yourself, is this message interesting, engaging? Is it short and sweet? Are the next steps and actions items really clear? And does this message address your audience directly? This brings us to our next question. How can we expand engagement among academics and students? So beyond thinking about lots of different ways to get your message out and different types of interesting, engaging content, always try to make sure that academics are hearing about Leganto from their peers as well as the library. I think in most of our calls, I've been telling you this, and you know that already. Academics like to hear from their peers. They trust them. So here you can see some of different examples of academics talking about Leganto, why they like it, how the impact, the kind of impact that Leganto has had on their work, the student experience, and the institutions at large. So as I said, academics love hearing from other academics. So peer-to-peer marketing is very effective when increasing engagement across your institution. How do you go about doing that? Again, start by asking which academics are fans of Leganto. I'm sure you know them already. You have those in mind, the ones that are more, that are using Leganto better, that have maybe a better relationship with you as well. And once you have identified which academics you can work with, ask them to help share the Leganto story. And there are different ways to do that. Will they be willing to write a positive quote about Leganto experience, maybe for your upcoming email campaign? Write a blog post about Leganto for your LibGuide, or create a short 1-2 minute video about their experience, maybe for the Twitter page, for your Facebook page. Or would they be willing to share their Leganto experience with other academics during maybe an upcoming meeting or a workshop series? So you really want to identify a couple of academics who would be willing to tell your message, to tell the message for you really, and ask to do that. Some examples here you can look at. One is the first one on the left is the Cambridge Geography Library. It's focused on applications for teaching geography, and share the blog post here via the Twitter page. California State, Fullerton in the US, they run a lunchtime seminar series for academics to share the research. The library uses this as really an opportunity to have academics share their experience and sneak in Leganto update into the series. Finally, the University of Sheffield here highlighted a positive quote via the LibGuides to promote the Leganto, the academic perspective. So I've also included a couple of other examples that showcase the academic perspective via positive quotes at other Leganto institutions. So several institutions in North America have highlighted positive quotes in order to increase promotional efforts, really surrounding Leganto and at their respective institution. These institutions have reported that, including positive quotes via the LibGuides, Twitter accounts, email campaigns, have helped them increase engagement and partnerships with academics. So we have a few examples here. Academic, the first one on the left, Dustin Malvani from San Jose State, has really taken it upon himself to market the product on Twitter. I like the other examples from Kimball Library and UT Dallas, who asked academics who are using Leganto to share some quotes and use these positive quotes to communicate the effectiveness of the services via Twitter and their LibGuides. So I think I've told about some of you about, the power of soliciting positive quotes from academics. It is simple, and you can easily incorporate it into your existing approach. I highly recommend exploring this option further and putting it into action, moving forward. Also, something else I've been highlighting to some of you is to not underestimate the influence that also students can have on Leganto adoption at your institution. I think I've told all of you at this point that the two main stakeholders that are going to use Leganto are the teachers and the students. So we need to partner with both. The student union, student workers, and students in general can be wonderful Leganto advocates. Ask library assistants to help create materials and create social media posts on Leganto. Consider showcasing a couple of, again, positive quotes from students on your LibGuide. Who knows, maybe you may persuade a few more academics to jump on board and use a student endorsed tool in the classroom too. I guess, again, some of you have shared that students have been beneficial, have been the ones going to the teachers and really pretend that they would use Leganto, because in some of their courses they were not using Leganto. So you see how their involvement can also be beneficial for you. A few examples here that I'd like to highlight. Swansea University here on the left, they works with students to diversify their collection, curate reading lists that showcase topics like Black History Month, Women's Day, and Disability History Month. On the right-hand side, the University of Mary, Washington, located in the US, they partners with students to create training video for students across their institution. And here, bottom right, the University of Strathclyde offers virtual skills boost sessions to the students, where they also discuss how to use reading lists. Finally, how can we increase partnerships? So while there are many ways you can increase partnership, I would encourage you to think of ways Leganto can be used to support the strategic initiatives that are already happening in your institution. Here there are some examples that I found and I wanted to highlight, starting from University of Edinburgh MOOC to support healthcare workers as they navigated critical care for COVID-19 patients in 2020-2021. And some of the others, Kingston University, here bottom left, the library created a well-being reading list in support of mental health. In the center, Lancaster University created a resource list for Autism Appreciation Week and Black History Month. The University of Surrey showcased the reading list created by a student curator for LGBTQ History Month via the Twitter page. Swansea again has shared reading list for International Women's Day, Black History Month, and other strategic initiatives with colleagues and students across the institution. So these are just some of the examples of strategic initiatives that you can support via Leganto. So as you get started, think beyond course reading list and explore ways that Leganto can be used to support your institution. What are the top initiatives that have been prioritized already at your institution? How can they be used to support Leganto's initiatives as well? So once you've done this, create a social media campaign, propose a partnership to relevant colleagues, so ask some initiative leaders to take part in their calls. Hopefully these are good ideas that you can put in practice soon. As you explore different engagement strategies, like the ones I mentioned today, you also want to make sure that you measure progress. You want to repeat what works, adapt if something is not working. It's important that you move beyond the activity and you assess outcomes as well as impact. If you don't do that, you will not know what is really working, right? So you want to keep a running list of all the activities that you are doing to accelerate adoption, that engage with academics and students and increase partnerships in a spreadsheet. be sure to include, dates, types of activities, track the results. Ideally, you should move beyond these numbers and also track outcomes. What long-term impact have these activities had on adoption? So once you have the results, when you assess this, you have some data, right? And you can take it from there. Finally, as we conclude this session, we can summarize key talking points as follows. So make sure that messaging are memorable. You want to keep things short and sweet, focus on people and the next steps. Change your channel. So yes, of course, you use emails, but as I shared with you, there are other channels that you can use to get the message out. And who knows, maybe teachers are not using their emails, but they're checking your Twitter page or they're looking at your LibGuide. So you want to make sure that your messages are spread out across different channels. And partner with people and support strategic initiatives. So you don't have to do it alone. There are other stakeholders in your university that can hopefully and are willing to become your partners. And again, don't underestimate students as well. And assess progress and determine next steps. So again, measure your effort, see what you've done, if and how it has been successful, and adapt as needed. And finally, we are here to help you. Work with us, reach out to me, to the team, and if you have questions and if you want to check some of our material as well. So thank you. I stated at the start of the session, we have a few minutes to address your questions directly. I'm not sure if there are some questions.
Thank you very much, Sara. Let's see.
If not, do you see any question?
No, I don't.
Okay. I got a, yes, I think I see a personal question here. Let me read it for you. So yes, I found the slide on student engagement to be interesting. How would you propose that we start engaging or involving students? Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics so far. I think there's so much potential that, as I said, some of you have started to explore, but there's still so much that can be done. And I would suggest you start with a student government body, for example, contact them and see, what they have, how they've been using, if they've been using Leganto, how they've been using it. Invite them for a discussion or a focus group. Propose maybe a partnership with your student union in which students can take part and their voices can be heard. Have them really co-create reading lists that support different initiatives. We've seen some of you already is doing it, and I find it really a great idea to involve the students even in creating reading lists, so they have a chance of experiencing the tool from a different perspective. And also consider adding a student curator to your library, or expanding maybe the responsibilities of student workers to showcase Leganto in a new way. One option could be to select students curator each month. I think Sara has been doing this very successful, and they have students collaborating with them on a monthly basis and possibly creating reading lists on a specific theme and topic as well. I hope this helps. I don't know if we want to leave Tamar some time for the previous questions, if there are no questions for me.
Absolutely. If there are questions, I see Angela is still there, and Elize as well. So as we did not answer all the questions at the session, perhaps you want to continue now, although I saw that you answered in writing. But if anyone wishes to raise other questions. Chris, are you on?
Yep, no, I was reading back through and just having a think about the engagement sort of strategy options. I can't see any other questions, but I think there's quite a lot there to sort of reflect on, particularly in terms of purchasing and some of the new features that you've mentioned. Yeah, I think the UK response or individual and Ireland response, European response may be different on sort of the role of the reading list management system in the wider sort of virtual learning environment sphere. But I think that's it's good to know there's functionality there. But I think that's something we probably could take away and discuss in more in terms of what people have tried, annotation tools, embedding, etc., and where the sort of library service, as you put it, ends, and where sort of academic practice begins. It is a sort of it's a tricky one. It certainly is. So we welcome any input from you, either organized, if you can think of something on behalf of everyone, or just on a personal level. So anything that you want to share with us is really appreciated. Okay. So maybe maybe it's all right that you have 8 more minutes for your lunch break. Nobody complains about that, I guess. So thank you very much for your participation. We'll share the recording. We'll share the slides. I see there is a question.
There is a question, yeah. Is it the one for me, you mean, Tamar?
It says, I would be interested in student creation of lists, but can they do this? I guess it's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, they can only share suggestions. So they can build it like an unofficial part of the list, and then the academic can decide whether to use it or not. We were talking about it, whether to allow a role in which a user can create a list, but then they cannot do other things, for example, see usage or this type of things. So it's not yet determined, but I'm happy to hear your feedback about it. If you think that it is useful, how much, would academics like this idea? And it's a question of just defining the role for students to build this, and whether the lists can be like an addition to existing courses or not related to courses. So let us know what you think.
Could I comment on that? I know that we've talked about this previously, and it's come up in sort of some of the user group discussions in different scenarios. Obviously, it perhaps depends how far to Sarah's point as to how far you've engaged and what level of maturity you have with the rollout. But also, actually, with quite early engagements, we did have at Sheffield. Then we had some examples of people wanting to do either sort of reading clubs, even peer-to-peer amongst sort of academics or professional services, learning technologists as part of the adoption. It didn't always last very long, but the thing was there. And certainly postgraduate talk courses, I think, as well, there was an element of that. Obviously, distance learning, everyone's distance learning, but I think as an engagement tool, it has a role. And I think, this is a personal reflection, I do think that the suggestion's less obvious than this idea that, oh, you can create a list. I know I'm an academic, and I know how to create a list. If I want to share it with my students, how do they do that? Oh, it's not creating a list. So I think the sort of clarity around it. And certainly I appreciate completely the role navigation, and actually from a GDPR perspective, the ability to look up a user, to be careful with that, I suppose. But I think it's certainly something there's demand for, absolutely. Yeah.
So basically we need to open the creation to users of any type, or to create another parallel role that can be added to a student or non-instructor role, so that they can create lists. And then how do they tie them to the ecosystem? To courses, or not related, or should they be open? Should they be limited to a certain population? We won't discuss all this in here, but perhaps we can set another meeting to look at the full picture, if that's all right.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm just looking at Angela's comment in the chat around we've done exactly that, given students the instructor role on a temporary basis. So I think it's perhaps been as much a workaround, maybe on a case-by-case basis, but it's just identifying the case-by-case basis. Sometimes there is a course, or we make a course in our case, But I think a lot of the scenarios have been where people have got a course and maybe just want to give a list for students to work together to create, resources, or in this case, library resources as well.
All right, so we'll take it offline, and we'll think together of a user story, how exactly this should be done. Okay, so it's nice to add features. So thank you all. It was a very, for me, very interesting session. I mean, not my part, but the other parts. And I hope you all feel the same. And I look forward to seeing all of you next week, Tuesday, 11 a.m., same time. And as I said, we'll share everything with you. So special thanks to Elize and Angela. I appreciate your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.